This is my intro music. Welcome to the video. I hope you like it lots, so don't forget to subscribe and click the thumbs up button. Now let's react.
Hey, hi, hello there, and welcome to another Fat Acceptance Friday. Woo! Hopefully, I'm gonna get this up today, which is Thursday, for the membership, so that the rest of y'all can enjoy this on Friday. Anyway, yeah, so we're gonna try to get this up on Thursday for the membership, so that the rest of y'all can enjoy it. We can do this, I swear to God, on Friday. And I'm reaching for my cloth to clean my glasses with. Yeah, because it's called Fat Acceptance Friday. So anyway, this is it's gonna be a day, guys. This is GraphicallyAlex. We've watched him before. I think he's lovely. But when we watched when we watched the first episode of him on this channel, he was talking about his toxic ritualistic behaviors. And I was like, gee, I wonder what those are. And then I looked down in the description of his video, and he literally had a video that was, what are toxic ritualistic behaviors? And I was like, hey, we should watch that. So apparently he's had enough people ask him what those are that he put together a nice long video about this. I didn't realize this was an hour-long video until I started watching it. So what I'm going to do is we are going to speed this up a little bit. Alex does tend to talk a little bit slow for like a reaction style video, but I will be linking this in the description down below for those of you who are interested in watching it in its entirety, because I'm not entirely sure if we're going to watch the whole thing. Now, there will be some censored words because YouTube is YouTube. There you have it. So there's that. As I have said in previous videos, I haven't gotten hit by the great and mighty man behind the YouTube when I use certain words yet. But until that happens, I'm going to continue to use real words because I don't care. Language is a thing, YouTube. So there's that. I can't say certain words, but you can sell adult toys on my YouTube channel. I see you, Adam and Eve. Anyway, not spicy about it or anything. Anyway, so this is Alex's video. What are toxic ritualistic behaviors / mindsets and how to stop them? I can't really say one way or the other if Alex is an expert on this kind of thing, but I do know that Alex himself has recovered from BED or is recovering from BED. I know that he has recently moved out of the overweight category, just from simply losing weight through calorie counting and diet and exercise. So congrats. I mean, that's rough. So, I mean, it's hard to do, right? If everybody could lose weight, there would be no overweight people. So congratulations on that. And from my knowledge, he has not used any kind of like weight loss surgery or Ozempic or anything like that. So not knocking people who do use those tools. I have been very open about, I think that those are fabulous tools if those are what you choose to do. I'm just being very transparent about what I am aware of, how Alex has done his particular journey. I think it's important that people are frank about how they achieve their results. And therefore, there you have it. So there you go. I think those are all the little caveats I need to put forward there. I think I wanted to do this one before we really start getting into the various fat acceptance personalities out there, only because I will be dipping back into GraphicallyAlex from time to time, just because I like his takes on things, especially since he used to be himself fat. I don't think if he was ever really part of fat acceptance. There's another creator who used to be part of fat acceptance. And I've covered her stuff before in the past. I don't know if I'll be doing too much of her stuff, honestly, going forward. Not for any particular reason. I just don't really feel drawn to do it. But, God. Violet? Anyway, I'll try to remember her and link one of her videos down below. because the more I try to think of who it is, the less I can remember who it is. Anyhow, thank you to everybody who's been supporting this channel. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to my members. You guys rock. Thank you to everybody who's going to hit the thumbs up button. If this is your third or fourth time doing Fat Acceptance Friday, I think I skipped a Friday, might as well subscribe. I'm going to try to do these more frequently. I'm thinking about doing, because I watched, Cynical Dude, and he did something about, like, Fat Acceptance Travel or something like that. I forget what it was, but I was like, oh, you know, that would actually be kind of a fun little kind of micro series to do within Fat Acceptance Friday, is just kind of like looking at all of the different like fat travel vlog kind of stuff, because Anna used to do a lot of fat travel, and there's a bunch of other girls that do fat travel to varying degrees, but it has become kind of a little trend of all of these fat travelers who go to different countries and they're like, oh my god, this country just is so fat phobic, nothing fits my 600-pound ass. And it's like, yeah, because 600-pound people didn't exist in the 1300s when most of the shit in that country was built. You know, it's just kind of like, all right, I just thought it would be kind of interesting to do that, and then also maybe, I don't know, talk about the countries culturally. You know, throw a little culture history in there, maybe from what I can do of it, from the armchair of my fake brick room. I don't know. I just thought that might be interesting. I also thought it was interesting that the one that he did, the girl was talking about the floating markets of Thailand, and I only thought it was interesting because Foodie had, was it last year or the year before, gone to Thailand to the floating markets, and then not long after that they caught on fire, which was unfortunate for the floating markets in Thailand. It was just kind of an unfortunate but interesting series of events. You know, kind of a thing. If you know, you know. If you don't go there. Anyway, unrelated to anything we were going to talk about here. So, anyhow, let us speed Alex up. I'm going to speed him up to... I'm going to start him off at time and a half because, again, this is a 50-minute video, and if I haven't made it evident, I talk a lot. I don't want to do this as a two-parter, so I think what we'll do is we'll kind of go through this and see how far we can get in our own hour, because I kind of plan to just kind of let Alex talk, and I might interject here or there. So it might not be as much of a reaction as normal because I'm going to let Alex teach us, and I may just interject here or there with just like a, oh, that's interesting, or with a question or something. And maybe if Alex watches this back, he can maybe answer questions if he feels up to it. If he doesn't, that's perfectly understandable as well. We're not trying, well, I mean, maybe we are trying to create reaction inception here. I have had someone react to one of my videos that I do really mean to get around to, and so I do want to do that. But anyway, I've rambled enough at this point. All right, so I've got Alex sped up. I'm gonna turn on the closed captions, see how that works. For whatever reason, I had them turned on to Tagalog. No idea why. I don't speak Tagalog. Never have in my life. But anyway, all right. We're good. We're good. Let's go. Alex, teach me things.
Hi, this is GraphicallyAlex, coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today we are...
All right, I lied. I'm going to slow him down. I don't know why I think I can do this. Can I still adjust him? Let's try that.
We're going to be discussing toxic ritualistic behaviors. I've had a lot of you guys ask me what they are, like as examples, and how to break them and how to get out of it.
Can I ask why you have a balloon next to your head? Because that's gonna bother me. Put that out there now.
So, first and foremost, we're going to do some disclaimers.
Yay.
But I have my Pennywise balloon, which we'll get into that soon.
Okay.
First and foremost, this is specifically for the psychological side. Okay. This is not about anything physical. This is not about hypothyroidism, PCOS, diabetes, any of that. Anything that would affect your hunger levels. This is not what this video is about. This video is about 100% of the psychological issues that go behind E followed by the letter D, specifically the letter B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D. That's the other disclaimer I want to say. This has more to do with the one where you're eating too much. This is not going to exactly fit with every single type of thing.
We're talking about EDs, eating disorders. Specifically, we're talking about binge eating disorder. Look, I don't care. YouTube, stop it.
Toxic ritualistic mindset, but this is the most common one. And so we need to talk about it. And we cannot talk about obesity without talking about this, especially when we talk about super morbid obesity. It's a major, major aspect of this issue in society.
Cool.
So the other thing I want to
I love that he has notes here.
say is it's not exactly a choice to have this. This happens because of trauma. I believe there is a genetic component, so it can really carry through families and go from generation to generation very, very easily.
Interesting that he says that he thinks that there is a genetic component to it. I don't necessarily believe that there is, but I don't think either of us are geneticists. So this is a comparison of opinions at this point. So there you have it.
Easily, each generation getting activated by some kind of trauma. I've seen that happen in my family. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened in yours as well. Okay. The final disclaimers I want to say are really two of them. And that's basically, this video is specifically about you yourself. It can help to recognize it in other people, but it's not exactly offering solutions for how to deal with it when other people still have it. I'm not doing that video at this point. I might do it at another point. But this isn't about that conversation. This is mostly intrapersonal. This is about internal problems. The last thing I want to say is the only advice I have in this video is towards this specific issue. If you deal with this issue and you are still anxious or you're depressed or you have, complex post-traumatic stress or something, if you have some other issue, this is not going to help with any of that. This is about one specific issue, which is tied to behaviors around ingesting. I have to be kind of careful with how I talk.
For those of you who are getting lost, because I know I would at this point, he's talking about binge eating disorder and he's talking about behaviors around eating.
So,
and
very, very specific. And that's what we're attacking, or that's what we're getting at in this video, okay? Is all the things that usually go into massively overeating from a psychological standpoint, okay? So that's the only solutions or advice or whatever I'm giving is for that very, very specific issue. So anyways, the last thing I want to say is I am not a professional. I am just a survivor. This is me giving my advice. Take what works. Don't take what doesn't. Think for yourself still, okay? But definitely look at it and see what you can take from it, okay?
I guess since we're putting out disclaimers at this point, I am neither any of those things as well. And I think as somebody who does benefit from therapy, I think if you're someone who has access to that sort of stuff, I think you should pursue that. I think anybody should pursue it. I think even if you're the most well-adjusted person on the planet, I think you could still benefit from therapy. So there's my disclaimer.
So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about the comparison of toxic ritualistic behaviors and mindsets to Pennywise the Clown from the movie It. Do you guys remember that movie? Yes. There was this weird kind of thing that shapeshifts, and it was typically in the form of a clown because it liked to scare kids.
Because Stephen King is a sadistic king of horror. Go on.
And it lived in the sewers. And so I wanted to talk about it from that perspective. How does it relate? Well, it's a secret, right? It's something that runs deep. It's something that we don't ever talk about. We never name it either. We just call it It. And we're going to call it It in this video, okay? It can appear in many different forms. Everybody has different triggers. Every single person has different ones. So this is also an issue that is difficult to have prescriptive solutions for.
But can we kill it with silver and inhalers?
Which is why it remains such an issue. You really have to not want to have this anymore for it to be gone. You can't depend on anyone else to get you out of it. You have to have accountability, self-direction to get out of this because nobody can watch you at all times. So you have to watch yourself and what you're doing. So you have to want it to be over, okay? Anxiety is kind of similar to fear, which the movie is a horror movie. Anxiety is the center of
Can't lie, that balloon's gonna bug me.
The entire issue. Sorry if you heard my phone. I need to put it on silent 1 second. Okay, we're back. So anxiety is at the center of the issue, similar to fear, like in the horror movie, okay? So always remember that this is going to escalate in times of anxiety. People often confuse this with emotional eating, but it's actually that the emotions cause anxiety, okay? Traumatic events in your life cause anxiety. Financial issues cause anxiety. Boredom causes anxiety. It always goes back to anxiety. So when we're talking about Pennywise, we're kind of talking about the anxiety that's behind Pennywise, okay? It's the fear. It's like in the movie when he wants to escalate fear for his own amusement or whatever. That's kind of how this issue survives and lives, is through anxiety, okay?
I was listening to a actual therapist. I think it was on Diary of a CEO, was talking about the cycle of addiction and why people relapse. And one of the things she was talking about were things that triggered relapse. And she was like, you are more likely to relapse when you are hungry, when you are tired, when you are anxious, when you are emotional. What was the fifth one? Because I think she wrapped fear into anxiety and fear into an emotion. But there were 5 of them. And it's interesting that Alex here has basically said all of the same things, only he's attributed all of them to anxiety and has said that all of those things will cause anxiety and has made anxiety the root of effectively relapse in this case, relapse into your binge. So I just think it's interesting that like Alex and this actual therapist have both identified the same things, but the root for them are different, right? This other woman is just identifying 5 things that will cause a relapse. Alex is identifying the same things, but is making them all making the root of all of them to be anxiety, and is saying anxiety itself will cause the relapse, where she has made anxiety one of. Anyway, I just thought it was an interesting thought. Anyhow, I have to stop at some points, right? I have to make this something, right?
The other thing I want to say is that the qualities of a person and the overall personality traits that I think put somebody at risk are people who are obsessive, so people who are ruminating types of people. For my astrology girly pops, people that are kind of scorpionic, okay?
Excuse you.
You got to drop a Scorpio in you. Ooh, no, I'm just kidding. But
Excuse you, sir. I am not obsessive. Much. I work hard not to be obsessive. Let me put it that way.
for other people, I would just say people who ruminate a lot. You can be extroverted and do this. You can be introverted and do this. It doesn't matter. Obsession is a huge risk factor for this issue. The other thing is being very serious all the time.
Really?
Okay, so everything within this, it's always life or death to a person that is in it. It is very serious. It's taken very seriously. I chose the name toxic ritualistic behavior for a reason, because the ritualistic aspect of this is so serious to the person who is in it. And you need to understand it, and other people need to understand it is very serious. The emotional pitch of this whole thing is extremely heavy, okay? It is a very, very, very heavy thing that somebody lives with. Okay. So I just kind of wanted to paint that picture, because even if they're like bubbly and laughy and, you know, funny fat friending it, beneath all that, there's a deep seriousness with this.
I was never the funny fat friend. I will just put it out there. I never took the role of the funny fat friend.
Very, very serious, because the person takes the rituals so seriously. And again, people will have different rituals. I can't say what yours will be. I can give an example later on that's pretty benign, because YouTube gets very upset. So we're going to be careful about how we talk about it, because it is it, okay? So first and foremost, we need to get into the cycle. So when it comes to toxic ritualistic behavior, it is a cycle. Why is it a cycle? Because if it wasn't a cycle, it would be unsustainable. You would not be able to sustain it. Think of the issue like a stool. And there's 3 legs to the stool. If you didn't have one of these, you would not be able to continue to do it. Now, they're not always going to be behaviors, but they're going to be obsessions. Okay, if you are not obsessed with all 3 of these things, you will not be able to maintain the behavior anymore.
Okay.
And you really need to think about that. So the first part of the process is overeating due to anxiety very quickly. That's what we're going to say.
Okay.
We all know what that is. If you're watching this, you probably know exactly what that is. Okay, I don't
because I don't do that. I've had this described in many different ways. I think everybody at some point has binged for any number of reasons, but I think when we're talking about the disorder of this, I think it has to be like a habit. You know, it has to be a habitual habit, behavior, words. So I think everybody has done a binge at least once in their lifetime, but I don't think everybody has it as a problem, right? So like everybody has been drunk at least once in their life. Not everybody is a drunk, right? Kind of a thing. But so I don't understand, as someone watching this video, I'm not actually going to be able to relate to a lot of this because I don't have this problem. So that's the other reason why it's interesting to be watching this, especially being given by someone who has suffered from and is recovering from or has recovered. I think it's like depression. I don't think you actually ever recover from this kind of a thing. You just learn to live with it and deal with it. Kind of a thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, don't have this problem. So I don't know. Where was I going with this point? I don't know. Lost my train of thought. But anyhow, I'm just letting you guys know that I cannot relate directly because I do not suffer directly with this. But I was interested to hear what Alex was going to say about it. If you are somebody who does or has, there you go. Let me know if you don't feel like sharing. That's also appropriate. Don't trauma dump in the comment section. It's not a safe space, so just letting you guys know.
don't need to explain it that much, but this is also, we'll get into that later. The second part of the cycle is hating your physical form. That's what we say here. Your physical form becomes a massive obsession.
We can't say body hatred. Really? Can we not say the word body?
You constantly look at all your flaws and these kinds of things all the time. And a lot of people don't understand, like, people can stare at themselves for a long time, like even hours. Okay, this can be a major, major thing. I took the Sharpie and I drew the Sharpie where I take the scissors, right? That's a part of it, okay?
I've not heard that song.
And finally, the last part is we will say unrealistic diets. Very unrealistic. And oftentimes, almost intentionally unrealistic so that they will fail, because failure is also a part of it. But that's why there has to be that aspect. Otherwise, there's no failure to then obsess over, okay?
That's interesting, to create a intentionally unrealistic diet so that you will fail, because failure is a necessary part of the cycle. That's an interesting statement.
Okay. So there's an absolute obsession with...
Which actually, when you compare this to the shit like Amber pulls a lot of her time, well, almost every time she puts herself on a diet, that actually kind of makes things make sense. Because a lot of times we'll call her out on her diets that she puts herself on. I'm sorry if I'm screaming into the microphone. Amber likes to put herself on these for her, very restrictive diets and very unrealistic diets that are, for her, designed to fail. And lo and behold, they don't work and she fails. And she gets called out for that pretty much every time she does it. But when you look at it the way Alex just describes it, though, the failure is the point. She has to fail. Like, failure is the point of it. And that does kind of make it make sense, honestly. Something else that I was just thinking about now, thinking about what Alex just said here and going back to the other therapist that I was talking about in the Diary of a CEO. I'm almost positive it was the Diary of a CEO. If I can't guarantee this one, but if I can figure out what episode I was watching, I will try to dig it out and link it down below. But if it's not linked down below in the description, it's because I couldn't find it. So it's not one of those I forgot situations. It's I literally couldn't find it. But anyway, when I was talking with the gentleman from Therapy Today, he was talking about research that he was looking into where they were discussing the cycle of failure in addiction recovery and how the cycle of failure was necessary in addiction recovery, and how I don't know if he was working on it or if he had a colleague that was working on normalizing the cycle of failure within addiction recovery because it was a necessary step in recovery. So I just like, since we're discussing like the, creating the restrictive diet because failure is the point, and then thinking about what Therapy Today was talking about with failure being a necessary part of recovery. It's just kind of a lot of blocks are falling into place, I guess, is where I'm going with this. So I don't know. Thank you, Alex.
Stuff. I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but there's an absolute obsession with stuff we buy at the grocery store. Absolute obsession with it. Whether it's what you want, whether it's what you're avoiding, or whether it's what it is doing to your body. You're always thinking about it all the time, constantly. And people don't understand how much people actually think about this. But it can be, especially when severe, it can be to the point where you have virtually no other hobbies or interests. Where maybe you have this and you have watching TV. And that's it. Okay, it can get very, very severe. Where it's just, you can have almost nothing else going on. It's very tough. So under this, I put certain nutrients are very, very common obsessions. So sugar is probably, at least I'd say here and now, like at this time, sugar is probably the number one obsession. So people will constantly be like, I want it, I'm avoiding it, it's doing this to my body. But it used to be saturated fat, especially. That was more like in the 80s, for example, or, in maybe other countries, they view it that way. But these are some common things, because you can even obsess over specific nutrients. So when anxious, you will do.
I do want to point out, for those of you who are just listening, Alex does have like a little text document that he has up here that he is kind of following along with. They're linear-ish notes. So they're not, he is kind of following his notes. I just kind of want to read a few things just so that you guys are with it. I'm not going to read every one of his notes because he is doing a pretty good job of following them. And again, they're not like complete thoughts, some of them, so I'm not going to read all of them. But what he just got done reading here was the obsession with food, whether you want to eat, whether what you want to eat, what you are avoiding eating, or what the food is doing to your body, etc. And then he said sugar is the most common obsession, followed by saturated fat. So that was what he was talking about right there. And then he's getting ready to go into this note, which is when anxious, you will do one of the three following parts of the cycle. When is the last time you didn't respond to the anxiety with one of those three things? So I guess he's getting ready to talk about these three things about the cycle. So I just wanted to kind of read his notes for you guys. Because I know a lot of you don't actually watch what I'm doing and you just listen. It's called a video, people. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, but I do want you to know that there are notes, but also that they're not like notes. They're like notes for him, not really for us. But anyway,
do one of the three parts of the cycle. So whatever happens in your day, once you're activated and once you're in this, gotcha. You can be late for work and you'll find that you'll start thinking about it. You can get in a fight with somebody, you'll start thinking about it. You can have minor upsets and you think about it. Okay, you will think about it with any little thing. You'll think about one of those three things. Always goes back to that. Okay, because that is the coping mechanism. It's a form of distraction. It's a grounding. It's kind of like your version of breathing into a paper bag or doing that kind of like that kind of breathing. That's what this is. Okay. So think about it more in that sense. It's a lot better to think about that way, because then you think, okay, how do I deal? Like, imagine if you were obsessed with breathing techniques, just obsessed. You were constantly doing breathing techniques all the time. You're constantly
You would be Wim Hof.
looking up new breathing techniques. You're constantly trying other breathing techniques. You're constantly holding your breath. Like, just think about how weird that would be, right? But that's basically what you're doing, okay, with this. Okay. Okay, one of the pinnacle belief systems of the toxic ritualistic mindset is a denial of caloric realism. Denial of caloric realism is a major component of the issue. So when we say caloric realism, what we mean is calories exist, and depending on how much you eat of them, your weight will be affected. So if somebody refuses to believe that, cannot see it, just are like, what the? If you say that, it's because their entire way of life is not rooted in that. So what does that look like? It leads to magical beliefs about weight gain or loss. Quote, I have no idea how I weigh this much. I might have spelled that wrong, but whatever. Quote, I eat less than my skinny friends. Quote, my weight is genetic. Quote, it's this specific nutrient that's making me fat.
Huh. Where have we heard these before? Jeez. I've never heard anybody ever, anywhere, ever say these sort of things. I like caloric realism. I like this phrase. I'm going to file it away for later. I've never heard anyone ever say these things. I have no idea how I weigh this much. Hey, Anna. How's that caloric realism working for you? I eat less than my skinny friends. Do you, Anna? Do you? Do your skinny friends eat two whole baskets of soup dumplings? Is that what your skinny friends eat? Uh-huh. Anyway, sorry.
This very specific one, which again, I'll just highlight it.
Sugar.
Okay.
Fat.
Exercise only serves the narrative around the issue. It's never done for its own sake. Remember, when somebody is in this, it is everything revolves around it in their life. Every single thing.
Exercise only serves the narrative around the issue. It is never done for its own sake. Examples: doing way too harsh of workout in order to get injured so you can stop. Saying, I exercise all the time and I'm still fat. I'm supposed to be this way. This video is from 6 months ago, by the way. But I'm seeing Anna saying, or most commonly, I can't exercise because insert excuse, and that's why I'm fat. I'm not entirely sure about that second one, but I hear that first one a lot. A lot. Not just from Anna, but from most of the girlies.
So exercise becomes a weapon or something that a person with this toxic ritualistic behavior will use in very insidious ways. So an example of that is doing way too harsh of workouts in order to get injured so you can stop. That is a major one. That happens all the time. We know of people that do that.
I mean, a really good example of that would be in Anna's recent Instagram stories. I know I'm going to keep using Anna as an example here, but that's just because she's so fresh in my mind right now. Anna has recently, in her stories, talked about how she's been walking so much, you guys, since her 4th surgery. She feels no pain, and she's just a walking fiend. But since she had to not walk for so long because of her bed rest from her surgery, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, she's been walking so much, she has blisters. And the only strong thing to do is to take a break from all that walking so that her blisters can heal. I mean, if you've ever had blisters, they don't heal overnight. And I'm sorry, I had a bit of a moment. Somebody called it my, what did they call it? My Gen X rant about slapping a Band-Aid on the blisters and just walking. I mean, I don't know why it had to be a Gen X rant, but I did rant about just putting a fucking Band-Aid on it and walking. that was true. Anyhow, I thought it was funny. But yeah, I mean, going back to the like working out in order to get injured so that she didn't have to walk anymore. I don't know if it was consciously intentional, but it is interesting that, you know, she walked herself into an injury. I mean, because a blister is an injury. It's just not one that you really need to like stop walking because of. They are uncomfortable, and if you're an idiot, they can become problematic. But you know, Anna's not in a situation where she can't walk her ass to a CVS or order blister bandages from CVS or Rite Aid or Walgreens or whatever your local drugstore and or grocery store is, and have them delivered that day so that you could put them on said blister and continue to walk. Also maybe get some moleskin to put inside your shoe so that you don't continue to get a friction blister. Put 2 pairs of socks on. Ask me about how to prevent blisters. I've got a few tricks. Okay? Anyway. But anyway, it's interesting hearing him say these things.
I'm not going to name names in this, but we know. Saying, quote, I exercise all the time and I'm still fat, therefore I'm supposed to be this way, right? So it's used as an agenda. It's not.
Pretty much all of the fat acceptance girlies say this shit. I go to the gym and I'm still fat. Well, okay.
Used just to exercise. It's used to serve what you're doing, okay? And the most common one, quote, I can't exercise because insert excuse, and that's why I'm fat. So it can become the
that sounds like Fat Sapphic Bro, who I haven't heard much of lately, so.
reason that you're fat as well. So that's something you just can throw that out there to somebody really easily and be like, well, I'm fat because I don't exercise. I don't work out. That's why I'm fat. You see, I'm sure you've heard that before.
Sorry.
Let's keep going. So one of the biggest gaslights of this is an identification with food addiction. Okay, this could piss people off because a lot of people that have this issue, they really get angry when you say this. I literally was saying this to my mom earlier today and she got triggered. Like she got pissed that I said this. So I'm going to say it. This is not the kind of video that's, you know, I'm going to say the truth. You may not like it. I understand why you don't like it. It's anxiety inducing. I totally understand it because.
And this is why I like Alex.
We're getting to the actual problem. And that is the number one reason why people identify with food addiction, because it diverts discussion away from toxic ritualistic behavior. That's the number one reason why. So the reason why you want to call yourself a food addict is because you don't want to talk about the fact that you're obsessed with breathing techniques.
I understand what he's trying to do. It was just a funny, weird way of putting it.
Why? Because you don't want it to stop.
So you want to identify as a food addict because you don't want to stop doing your toxic rituals around food.
You don't want to stop.
Okay.
Because why don't you want to stop? Because you feel like something horrible will happen if you stop.
That's fair.
You're terrified of stopping. All right. Absolutely terrified because, again, you take it very, very seriously.
Okay.
And I understand that. I've been there. Trust me, I've been there. I have.
Okay.
But we're not going to divert the discussion with your obsession with breathing techniques. You're not addicted to the breathing techniques. You're obsessed with it. There's a difference. Why are you obsessed? Because you have no other way of dealing with your anxiety. That's why. Okay.
I honestly don't think I completely understand what he's saying there. And maybe that's because I don't have the issue. Or maybe it's just because since he's jumping back and forth with his examples because he's afraid of getting flagged, he lost me.
Okay. 2, gives the person the excuse that they are powerless over food, despite the fact that the person will typically be very controlling over what they eat, even crying if they can't get a certain bagel, for example.
Okay, that was directly calling out Anna. Okay, that was directly calling out Anna.
So this is obviously untrue because a lot of people that have this issue, they will only want specific things, or they will be very specific.
I understand this part.
And I don't mean it in a, oh, you know, I have PCOS, so I need to avoid sugar. That's not what I'm talking about. Or, oh, I'm diabetic and I need to stay away from that kind of thing. Like, I'm not talking about like having a physical condition and you needing to adjust your diet for that. You know, like if you have massive insulin resistance, for example, and sugar makes you feel like you're starving to death all the time. I'm not saying that that's what this is. That's rooted in a physical thing. That's different. Remember, this is completely psychological. Okay? Totally psychological. Completely. Okay? And it's the same thing with, you know, like for me, I'm hypothyroid. I avoid all seed oil consumption, for example. But it's rooted in a physical reason. Okay? It's not a psychological thing. It's physical.
I get the second point, because a lot of people with any addiction, a lot of people will have issues with people identifying as an addict because it takes power away from them. And it's not just with food addiction. I used to run, as I've said before, I used to be part of the skeptics community, and right or wrong, one of the things that the new skeptics, which was a different branch of the skeptics community, totally different branch. One of the things the new skeptics used to have issues with was AA, and that's because with AA, I've never been in AA, but the 12-step program, I guess, like one of the first things they do is like you have to admit that you are an addict and you have no control over your addiction. And so the new skeptics had an issue with that because you had to relinquish control of yourself over yourself. And that was a problem that they had, because they're like, you always have control over yourself. And so there are people that do have an issue with ever denying that you have control, because it takes you the ability to have control away. Did that make sense, or did I lose everybody there? So I can understand why identifying as a food addict is a way for a person to give up, to use addiction as an excuse to not control their eating, if that made sense to you. Trying not to lose my own argument here. I am fence sitting on that one, honestly. I think there are some people that maybe do have a true addiction, but I'm not entirely sure what it looks like, to be perfectly honest with you. Because I think addiction for me is a compulsion. Like it's a lack of control when confronted with object of said addiction. So, which unfortunately food is always around. You're always around it. You know, it's one of the few things in life you can't just completely cut out. But most people, when they say they're addicted to food, they're talking about heavily processed foods, like super processed foods. Again, going back to his sugar and fat kind of things. But those are normal. Those are foods that you could avoid. Like you don't have to have those around. No one's gonna die if they don't have a ho ho or a ding dong. You know, you don't need to have Twinkies in the house. You need to have fruits, vegetables, meats, bread, you know, that kind of stuff. You need to have some sort of food in the house. You have to eat something. You know, you can't exist on air alone. So that kind of a thing. But when people say they're addicted to food, they're not typically telling you they're addicted to celery, that kind of thing. So that's why I'm fence sitting on the food addiction thing. Sugar, I can believe you're addicted to sugar, because I can see people having a hard time controlling themselves when confronted with sugary food. So that I can believe, but like food itself, I don't know. And anyway, but I definitely see people identifying as a food addict in order to not have to take responsibility for their actions around food. We see Amber do it. Anna will never admit that she's a food addict. Not current day Anna will never admit that she's a food addict. Olden day Anna did. She admitted to being a food addict, especially when it came to sugary food. She clearly admitted that with her own words. Amber typically does admit that she's a food addict, and that's one of the reasons why I don't think she'll ever actually manage to lose weight, because she uses food addiction as an excuse to not lose weight and to not control herself when it comes to food. We see Foodie Beauty. We see Chantel do this with the food addiction thing. Though Foodie, I think, has a lot of problems. Foodie would be one of the few people that I would be like, yeah, she might actually legitimately be addicted to food. That kind of a thing. Watch 600-Pound Life. Or any of those, like, you know, Family by the Ton or any of those kind of shows. You'll see people who use that kind of language around food. So there's that kind of stuff. Anyway, where are we going with this? Yeah, I'll let him continue now.
So that would be different. That's a different thing. But yeah, this is used to control other people. Both of these really are. They're meant to get you to not talk about the actual issue and get you to back off the discussion. It's a conversation killer. That's why this exists. It's a
identifying with food addiction as a way of killing and controlling a conversation. I'm there.
way
I'm
of
with
protecting it.
Cool.
Okay, now let's continue. The next thing is over-identification with obesity. Obesity becomes a core part of the person's identity, which leads to the following beliefs. The belief that obesity is genetic. This is extremely common. A lot of people in mainstream society have taken this toxic ritualistic mindset and made it their own. Remember that if you have a belief of any one of these things, that doesn't mean that you have the issue at hand. It means that you have internalized a belief from somebody who does, if that makes any sense.
So he is calling these things that we have been going over, he's calling these the toxic ritualistic behaviors, hence the / mindsets. Okay. Because I'm waiting for the behaviors. I'm like, where are these? Okay, these are. Okay, I'm here. I'm with you. I caught up.
Which there's plenty of people who do, and they tend to be in industries that are around,
Excuse me,
you know, this kind of stuff. Okay.
Excuse me again.
But anyways, so that's the number one lie, that obesity is genetic. People will be obsessed with that. They're obsessed.
It's not, by the way. It's not. It's not even a little bit. It's not.
They love it. This is America's favorite lie. It's their favorite thing. They cannot handle it. They are like obsessed.
Yes.
The second thing is getting deeply offended if another person says anything negative about fatness or fat people, quote unquote. So if you're in a room with somebody and they say, oh yeah, I'm not really attracted to fat people, and you like feel it to your core and you're like,
that's a you problem. And that's a you problem.
Oh my God. And you like want to cry over hearing that, even if you weren't even interested in the person or anything. That's a warning sign. I'll put it to you that way. Or if somebody's doing that in your life, that's not a good sign. Constantly projecting themselves into conversations people are having about their own bodies. So if somebody that's not very big says, I feel fat today, and the person is like, or if you're like, that's not a good sign. Feeling an attack on their identity if someone else loses weight. So we saw this like with Adele, we see this with Lizzo, we see this with a lot of different celebrities that have been losing weight, and people feel it as an attack on their identity that comes from an over-identification with obesity, okay? And finally, feeling excluded if something is not in your size. You shouldn't feel personally rejected by that. If you do.
You just like completely described the entirety of fat acceptance right there.
That does denote a more serious issue at hand. Projection. Okay, so this is also a major thing. So
sorry, that wasn't me being mean. I heard him say production, and I was saying projection to correct my own hearing. That wasn't me correcting him. Sorry.
People that have toxic ritualistic behaviors, they will project onto other people. Part of it is externalizing onto others, which is how I described in my latest video, how people that suffer with toxic ritualistic mindsets and behaviors, they reinforce it. There's like an ecosystem of them because they all externalize too. And it hits that person that has it very deeply. And it's like a cycle and a circle of trauma, constantly reinforcing it through the ecosystem. It's very toxic, but it is very present. And I think that when it comes to obesity, that ecosystem is a huge reason and a huge barrier to getting over this problem.
Crabs in a bucket. Crabs in a bucket.
Okay. So let's get into what it looks like from the side of eating too much.
Looks like crabs in a bucket. You try to get out, and the other crabs pull you back in.
Judging other people's bodies and constantly monitoring weight gain and loss in others. Mm-hmm. So if you are absolutely obsessed with the fact that Lizzo is currently on a downward trend, that could be a projection.
Lizzo's killing it. Lizzo is proof that if you have time, money, and the inclination, you can drop weight like mad.
Projection issue. And what I mean by this, when we talk about judging people's physical forms, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the actual aesthetic, how somebody looks, okay? Whether it's for being too big or too small, okay? So it can go either way. It's a constant judgment from the person. Obsessively telling other people what to eat. This can be a thing too. I've seen this happen a lot. You know, if it's the kind of thing where if you go out to eat, they're upset that you're not having what they're having or something like that.
To be fair with the obsessively telling other people what to eat part, though, like, I see that on both sides of the camp. Like, I see, like, the newly reformed, you know, weight loss people or someone who's just recently picked up a new diet. They're like, oh my God, you should eat XYZ. You know, I've seen it from both sides. And I also see, like, the people who are overly identifying with being obese are just like, why aren't you eating yada yada yada? And it's like, because I don't want to eat yada yada yada, you know. And I also see it from people who feel like threatened, like, because you're not eating something that they want to eat and you aren't eating that thing. Like, I don't want to eat that. That's just not, I'm not in the mood for that tonight, you know. And they're like, well, why aren't you? And it's like, because I don't want that. Eat it if that's what you want. It's a restaurant. There are many things upon the menu. Pick one of them and eat it. I am choosing not to eat that because there are, again, many things upon the menu. You know, it's just, I see that from a lot of different angles. Here's the thing. If you're going to a restaurant, eat what you want. There are many things on the menu.
There's a need to try to control what other people eat. It's not good, okay? Assuming that everyone has an issue with the kind of issue where you're not eating enough, okay? So they'll assume that anybody who's thin has that. They'll assume anybody who lost weight has that. They'll assume, they'll go right to it. Telling others that if you say...
They assume everyone has a restrictive issue because they assume that's the only way that weight loss is possible. Because they can't themselves control themselves enough to lose weight. And that's why they assume the only way everyone else is losing weight must be because they are restricting themselves. It's one of those, I can't figure out how ancient people built the pyramids, therefore it must be aliens. No, just because you can't figure it out doesn't mean aliens. You know, just because you can't manage to lose weight doesn't mean we're all starving. It just means you haven't figured out how to lose weight yet. You know, it's just one of those kind of things.
Anything about them, you want them to have an issue with the not enough, okay?
Right.
Even though they already clearly have a problem. I'm going to add clearly to that. But even though they already have a problem, okay? But it's, again, that projection in using the label, which a lot of people do. They will use the label. And you've noticed the complete downplaying of the side where it's too much. You've noticed it. It's almost completely silent.
It's too much.
People don't talk about it. And it's because there's so many more people that have that one, so they weaponize the other kinds. And they use it to hide. Okay. That's the biggest thing. And here we go. Denial. Person will deny having this issue at all cost. They run from the topic like a cat runs away from water. Many deny it so deeply they are also unaware that they have the issue. The biggest goal of a person in the thick of it is to keep it a secret. Always remember that. And why is it that they want to keep it a secret?
I think we're still talking about binge eating.
Because they don't want it to change. Okay. Even if they say they do, they don't. They're terrified of it changing. So that's why the number one thing is that it's a secret. It's a secret Pennywise in the sewers of your mind, okay? So let's talk about how to
get out of the sewers of my mind. All right. He is going to go on to talk about how to get out of these ritualistic behaviors that I do believe revolve around binge eating. So, and we are coming up on an hour. So again, I'm going to, because this is roughly halfway through the video, a little over halfway. I'm going to link this, as I said before, down in the description down below. So if you are interested in hearing the rest of the video, go ahead and follow that link over to GraphicallyAlex's channel to watch the rest of the video. Whether you just want to hear the rest of the video because you're interested, or I don't know, maybe you're finding value in it. Again, not a doctor, not a therapist. So, watch at your own leisure kind of a thing. But if you're finding value in it, knock yourself out. But I wanted to hear what I'm scrolling as if his screen is going to scroll up. It's not going to do that. I wanted to see what his ritualistic behaviors were. Again, these are around BED and ED. BED, that is BED. All the letters. So I think I know a little bit more. I did get confused a few times, not gonna lie. But I think I do understand a lot more what he means when he starts talking about the toxic ritualistic behaviors, because he does mention them damn near every time he's doing a video, which is fine, because he has some solid points here, and I don't disagree with them. And I mean, he fucking nails more than one personality in girl world at least. And I mean, a lot of what he says I can see in a lot of the fat acceptance personalities that come to mind. And again, I see a lot of these behaviors in the 600-pound life people, because I watch a lot of that through, again, Shaun of Steel, because y'all know who I obsessively watch pretty much every week when he comes out with a new video. The denial part I think is interesting. He's talking about the person will deny having BED at all cost. I don't think we've ever, going back to Anna, I don't think we've ever heard Anna talk about it. Okay, no, that's a lie. We haven't heard modern day Anna talk about it. We have heard Anna of the past blog about it. So saying that she denies it so deeply that she's unaware, Anna at least used to be aware that she had this problem. And Anna used to be aware that she was a food addict because she, again, blogged about it. There's a post she made talking about the Orange Hostess cupcakes, which, again, are delicious. Don't get me wrong. But she has an entire post where she talks about how she unsuccessfully tried to walk home one day from work. She had just a craving for them, obviously, and she tried to get home without eating them and almost made it home, and just she got to the very last block before her apartment, and she ended up going into a little like not a gas station, but like a little corner store, and buying them right before she got home. So she has a whole story about that. And she also has another, I think she's got a couple posts where she talks about binges that she's had. So Anna used to talk about these kind of things. She stopped talking about it once she became the fashion girl and she joined fat acceptance. So all of that language stopped, and all of that self-awareness stopped after she joined fat acceptance. The projection stuff is very interesting. With the projection, we've seen a lot of that with the anytime any of the idols within fat acceptance start losing weight. Remy Bader is the current demon. Keeping in mind, Remy Bader never wanted to be part of fat acceptance, never wanted to be a fat acceptance icon. But the whole thing of assuming everyone has a restrictive issue if they are not overweight, telling others if you say anything about the individual's weight, you want that individual to have a restrictive issue, even though they have the opposite of said restrictive issue. Yeah, so like if you have a loved one who has binging or who is morbidly obese, and you're like, man, you need to do something. You clearly have a health problem. Like, you just want me to be anorexic. No, I want you to lose weight. Those are two completely different things. You want me to be Eugenie Clooney? No, actually I don't. I would rather prefer you didn't. That would be actually counter to what I want in life. His over-identification with obesity, I mean, that was like, I haven't had an issue with anything that he said here, but that one was just like chef's kiss. That whole thing there, like that is the entirety of fat acceptance in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little lines right there. Just perfect. I'm trying to roll back without going too far. He did lose me a little with the identification with food addiction. Because it diverts discussion away from toxic ritualistic behaviors. That lost me a little bit. But I do understand his second point, where it gives the person the excuse that they are powerless over food. And I did understand the third point, which he doesn't have written down, but he did make, that this is a conversation killer, and it allows the person to control a conversation when it comes to discussing their weight or discussing their food problems, because there's a lot of ways to kill conversations, and this is a conversation killer. I understand controlling conversation that way. So that much I do understand. This is the first point. I guess I just don't get. But again, I've never had this exact problem, so, you know, maybe if I did, I would understand that a little bit better. This part about exercise was really interesting to me. The exercising only serves a narrative around the issue. It's never done for its own sake. Like, doing of exercise in order to get injured so that you could stop. That I thought was that was a light bulb moment for me. So I thought that was very enlightening. The whole, I exercise all the time and I'm still fat, therefore I'm supposed to be this way. That we hear that all the fucking time out of fat acceptance and all of the fat acceptance girlies. The caloric realism, writing that one down. That was a good one. The whole, I have no idea how I weigh this much. I eat less than my skinny friends. My weight is genetic. It is not. I have this, I think he meant gene, the specific nutrient that makes me fat. I think he means a specific gene that makes me fat. I've never heard somebody say I have a specific nutrient that makes me fat, but I don't know, maybe he did mean that. So there's that. And again, going back to his using anxiousness as his route for relapse, going back to the therapist on Diary of a CEO, and also talking about Therapy Today and their, I think, colleague who's looking at the cycle of relapse as part of the recovery cycle. I just thought that was really interesting that all of that kind of came together in one thought for me. Just because of Alex's little notes here. I just thought that was very interesting, and I appreciate that Alex was able to bring that all together for me. That was a nice moment for me. And I do honestly, really, even though the balloon drove me nuts, I do really honestly appreciate his whole analogy of BED as it from Stephen King's novel, as Pennywise from Stephen King's novel. I think he did a really good job of comparing the two, that it's a secret, it appears in many forms. It's the anxiety and the fear is the center of the entire issue, and that it thrives on being kept secret and being kept and living in the sewers of your mind. I think he did a really good job there, and I really appreciate that, because I am a Stephen King fan, and I do like it. I feel like it's one of his better novels. I know. fight with me in the comments section. It's fine. Bring it. I'm not a huge fan of the movies. I don't think King's books really translate into movies very well, but I do think the books on their own stand very well. I think The Stand, a very good book. Fight me with that one. Fight. Anyway, so yeah, if you've made it this far in the movie, yes, in the movie. If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave a red balloon down in the comments section. If you didn't see that coming, you weren't paying attention. And let me know what you guys think so far. What do you think of the toxic ritualistic behaviors? Do you see yourself doing any of these? Do you feel like there should be some that Alex may want to add? Do you have any questions I mean, if you were to ask Alex a question about these, do you have any questions about them? I can't answer any of them, but I mean, maybe I can pass them on to him if he's up for it. Again, this video of his is 6 months old as of today, so he put this out in October of last year, and today is May the 1st. So, just giving you a time span as to what we're dealing with here. But I think this was a very informative video. I appreciate that he put it together, considering I had questions watching one of his videos from I feel like a month ago at this point. So I appreciate the effort that he put into this. It was informative to me as somebody who does not suffer from BED or any ED, honestly. I feel like these probably could fit with any ED, honestly, because I feel like these behaviors probably could keep any real toxic behavior or any kind of addiction, really, could probably apply to any kind of addiction cycle, to be honest. Again, I don't suffer from any, so I don't know. Again, if you choose to share any personal details about stuff like this in the comments section, it's fine. Just try not to trauma dump. The internet is not a safe space. Comment sections are not a safe space. Just letting you guys know that. And that's pretty much all I've got for you guys. Again, thought this was really informative. Really appreciate Alex putting this together for everybody. Your emoji is a red balloon. And that's all I've got for you guys. So thank you to everybody who's been enjoying Fat Acceptance Fridays. Thank you to my members. Thank you to my subscribers. You guys rock. I do have 3 tiers of membership at this point. Thank you to everybody who's going to hit the thumbs up button. And if you've made it this far, you might as well subscribe. I think I said that 3 or 4 times at this point. And I will see everybody in the next video.
This
Bye!
is my outro music. You can't copyright strike me because it's just me singing. This is my outro music. Thank you for watching. See you next time.